So hello everyone, this is Pranav and this is my first time actually going live on YouTube. So I would really appreciate if you guys can let me know if you can actually hear me, if you can see the screen, and if you can see me in the right corner of the screen on your bottom. So yeah, just let me know if you can hear me, if you can see me, and if you can see the screen as well, where I've opened the latest version of TypeScript, TypeScript 4.0, 4.2, sorry. Actually, I did make a video on 4.0 when it was released, and that was the first video of this channel. As you can see here, 4 months ago, the first video of this channel was actually about TypeScript version 4.0, and there we discussed all the features and breaking changes. And if you're interested and if you want to be a TypeScript pro, not a noob, we have a new video which is called as Become a TypeScript Pro by Breaking Bad Habits. So go and check out that video as well. But anyways, because it's our first live stream, today I want to discuss something exciting, something new. TypeScript 4.2 version was recently released and it has a lot of new features, a lot of improvements, and it also has a breaking change that I will let you know in the very end. So stick to the video and let's learn a lot of new things together. Kritika just told me in the chat that she can hear me properly. So a big thanks to her. And let's go and see what are the new improvements. So we have smarter type alias preservation. But wait a minute. Actually, before going into TypeScript 4.2, if you're new to TypeScript, if you don't know anything about TypeScript, let's actually first see what the hell TypeScript is. So if you have never used TypeScript, just remember that you can actually, with the help of TypeScript, it runs over JavaScript and you can actually declare types. So let's say the variable is name and you have declared a type. Now in JavaScript, you might never see this part over here, where I have a colon and I have string, right? In JavaScript, you can actually do anything you want. You can assign a string to this variable, you can assign a Boolean, you can do anything you want. But with this, you can only assign it a string. And let's actually see that, okay? Now, what I'm basically doing here is it's saying I cannot assign null to a string, so that's great. As you can see, actually I'll just make it a constant because I don't really need to reassign the value every time. So it's saying type null is not assignable to string. Well, JavaScript never checked that for me. Let's assign it a number. Again, the same error, but now it says number cannot be assigned to type string. So essentially, I can only assign a string to this. Anyways, this is throwing some other error. It's because of the TypeScript 4.2.2 version. It says we cannot redeclare block scope variable, but don't worry about it. Just be sure, just remember one thing, that with the help of TypeScript, you can actually define types to your variables, okay? Okay, I'll actually zoom in for you guys, just so that you can see properly. And now let's go back to TypeScript 4.2, which has a lot of new features and a lot of new things that we should get into right away. So the first thing is smarter type alias prevention, and this is very interesting. Okay, I'll zoom in for you a little bit just so that you can read properly as well, okay? So it says TypeScript has new way to declare new names for types called as type aliases. Now let's see what they really mean. Let's say we want to create our own type. Let's say it's a basic primitive type. I'll name it hit like type. Okay, so remember to hit the like button, right? Let me know if you guys can see it. If you want me to zoom in more, I can do it for you. Anyways, now you can see I've declared a type. Why do we use this? First of all, you need to understand why we need a primitive type like this. I can actually, let's say I have a function. Let's say I have a function, I have a method in my code, and it doesn't matter what the type of my argument is. It can be a number, it can be a string, it can be a Boolean. I'm essentially doing the same operation on it. Now, in that case, wouldn't it be, too cumbersome and complicated by writing this each and every time? Or maybe creating three functions, one that accepts a number, one that accepts a string, one that accepts a Boolean, or in the best case scenario, I could assign like this. This basically means my type should either, the value variable, the type of it should either be a number or a string or a Boolean. Now, if I assign it like this, this basically means that whenever I see the type, the type that I have created myself, hit like type, actually I'll just name it hit like type primitive. So whenever I hover my mouse over it, you will actually see that it can accept only three values, string, number, or Boolean. So we have actually created our own type, and we have assigned that type to the argument of this function. Isn't that great? Let's see what else do we have here. We actually, it says that the TypeScript 4.2 is really cool because what you can do with it is that it can actually read your code, understand your code, and then infer the types himself, or itself, I should say. Now, in this case, again, same example, we have the basic primitive, we have a function that is accepting an argument of that basic primitive type, and there's an if statement. Now, there's a 50% chance in this function that your variable, your return type, can actually be undefined, right? Your return type will either be a basic primitive that you have passed in the argument, or it can be undefined if this math.random runs as expected. So there's a 50% chance your type can either be undefined or number, string, Boolean, which is basic primitive type. What do you think should be the return type? So if I hover my mouse over the function do stuff, it actually says that the return type is basic primitive or undefined. And that is really, really cool. You need to understand why. TypeScript actually inferred from your code. It read your code and it tells you that yes, the basic primitive is the expected output, but you can even have an undefined type, right? Isn't that cool? So TypeScript compiler is now way smarter than it was before. It is inferring the types from your code and telling you that what possible values can you have. And this will really help you in making your code error-free. I have a few viewers right now. That is really great. Jasraj, hello. Anchit, hi, how are you? I have my mom as well on the live stream. Hello. And anyways, let's go ahead. And Jasraj is asking, is 4.2 a stable version? So right now, 4.2 is not a stable version. You will need to either play with it in the TS playground, or you need to install some libraries or frameworks in your Visual Studio Code just to support it. But soon it will be stable. I guess in a few months, this would be a stable version, but it's very good to know ahead of time what new features are gonna come. Anyways, moving on, what do we have here? Yeah, so if you have seen my old video on TypeScript, as I told you, the first ever video on this YouTube channel, TypeScript 4.0, I introduced tuples in TypeScript, and I introduced a lot of amazing things you can do with them. But this time with 4.2, they actually took it to another level. So for those who don't know what a tuple is, you can actually give the type of array number to your variable, and that basically means your array can have only two elements, and both of them should be numbers. There's another amazing thing you can do with it. You can, for example, in this example, you can create an array, and you can have three different types. So basically string, number, and Boolean. Now this is very strict. Let me tell you why I say that this is very strict. If I write here a string with hit the like button, again, remember to hit the like button. So in this case, as you can see here, it does not accept the third argument. And why is that? Because it says type string is not assignable to type Boolean. Well, isn't that great? Now, again, it is expecting three arguments. It is expecting three types in your array, but it's also expecting them in the right order. The order has to be maintained, otherwise it won't work properly. So now you can either assign it again true or false, but I think you got the idea. I have Shivam on the chat as well. Hello, I'm good. How are you? So moving on. So now there are a few interesting things that you should know. In this example, this takes it to a whole another level. We can define a tuple with string and then comma string question mark. Now, what it basically means is that your tuple can either have one string, just one element, or it can have two. The question mark basically says that the second one is optional, but you cannot have three, you cannot have one, you cannot have zero, sorry. So you can have either one or two strings in your array. So I hope you understand that. If not, let me know in the comments down below. Also, let's see the other one. Now you can label your tuples, and that is another great thing that was introduced in TypeScript 4.0. And why do we need to label them actually? Let me show you both these examples and you will be able to understand way better. So if I see my C, the variable C can have a string and the second string or undefined. Now why we have string or undefined? It is very important to understand that. I'll zoom in it more for you guys. So if you carefully see here, C can have string because the first one is essential and necessary, but the second one is actually a string or undefined value. Archit is asking something. Can you have undefined for optional? I don't understand your question. Can you please type a little more so that I do, and I will try to answer that. Anyways, coming back here. So here we have a string, and then we have string or undefined because the second argument is essentially not required. But if I hover my mouse over D, you see it's much better now. It says the first variable, the first is a string, and the second is a string or undefined. Now that is really great because here we could not really understand anything. I mean, we know that it's a string and the second one is a string as well, but here we get better names for their variables, and that is basically called labeling your tuples. Now let's say you're working in a team of 5 people and you write here street address, and then you write the city, right? Now anyone who's working with you would know that the first argument has to be the street address and the second argument has to be the city. Now that is really a readable code, and that helps you a lot when you're working in larger teams. But let's see what else they added. They added a super cool thing that basically means you can have 2 strings. They are necessary to have, but then you can have any number of booleans in the end. And again, that is great because as you can see here, hello, comma, world, 2 strings are accepted. Hello, world, and false is accepted as well. But again, you can have any number of tuples in the end, any number of arguments or any number of values in your array in the end. So you have hello world and then true, false, true, and this can go on and on till eternity. Let's go on. Let's see a few more. So Arshit is asking if we can have, I'll actually show it to you guys on the TypeScript console over here. And he's basically asking if we have, let's say, let's see is string and string, which is the optional one. And then we have can we have that? Now the answer is yes, because right now the string is undefined, but if I have null here, this would give an error because null is not expected over there. Null is actually a value that we can give to our variables. We can either have undefined or we can have a string. And why is that? Because if you just hover your mouse over the variable C, you can see that it expects a string or undefined. So that is why you can add undefined, otherwise you could not. So if I remove this question mark over here, it will give me an error because now it says it's expecting a string, strictly expecting a string, and it cannot accept undefined. So that's a good question, but now we know the answer. Thank you for asking. And yeah, now again, the new thing that is really great is that now you can add the triple dot and their type anywhere in the tuple. So that's a new thing. Earlier, you could only have them in the very end, but now you can have them anywhere in your array. You can have them in the beginning, so you can start with you can either start with a string or a number, but you can add any number of strings before the number, right? You cannot have number and then strings because it strictly says first 0 to infinite number of strings and then a number in the end. Again, you can have the same formula, the same thing, but you can have Boolean, then Boolean, and you can have any number of strings inside this array as long as it starts with a Boolean and it ends with a Boolean. So you can see multiple examples here: true, false, true, some string and then false, true, some strings and then false. Okay, moving on. You can definitely read more about this. I have added the links to this official document in the description, so you can go through that. I'm just going to go through the most important changes, right? So now, as you know, we are going more and more towards object-oriented programming. So this time, TypeScript came out with abstract classes, and let's see what we can do with them. So if you're familiar to different programming languages, different object-oriented programming languages, you might know that what an abstract class is. Now in TypeScript, you can define an abstract class like this one, like shape, get area. So it basically says that anything that extends the shape abstract class should definitely give a method called get area, and it should return a number. Let's see how we can actually use this. Now, obviously, you cannot instantiate an abstract class. And why is that? Because abstract class needs to be defined somewhere. It needs to be defined by the class that extends it. So if you just instantiate a new abstract class, it just won't mean anything. So the right way to do it is let's say you can create a class named square. Again, you can create rectangle, circle, anything you want. And let's say you have the side length. In the constructor, you are defining the side length. This is pretty basic, but the important thing is if you extend this shape, you need to implement the get area. Now, that is really great because if you have hundreds of different type of shapes in your application, this will make sure that all of them have the method get area. Let's actually try that. So if I copy that, obviously this would give me an error. Anyways, we can ignore this one, but let's say if I don't implement this method, what will happen then? Now it tells me that non-abstract class square does not implement inherited abstract method get area. So that clearly means I need to implement this method over here. Again, if I return a string, let's check how far can it go. So if I return a string, this method gives me an error. It says that string is not assignable to type number. So it is actually checking our types and everything from the base class. So that is really awesome. Again, it tells you more about abstract interfaces and abstract classes. So go ahead and read more about it. Let's go to the end, and I guess there is one more important feature. Actually, it's a breaking change, and I want to discuss that with you guys. So if you're using this in your code, you need to stop using it. So what is it? It is the in operator. In operator, for those who don't know, is only used, actually should only be used for objects, right? Now, what do we mean by this? Let's try this one. It says that it will say that right-hand side of in expression must not be a primitive. Let's try this. I'll paste it here. I'll zoom in. And yeah, it shows the same error. right-hand side of an in expression must not be primitive. Now, what does it mean? First of all, we need to understand what is the use of the in operator. So I'll comment this line, right? And I'll show you a use case of this operator. Let's say we have an object named address, and we have street, let's say Sherbrooke, and we have the city, say Montreal, right? So what does in operator do? And it is actually used in JavaScript. It is a JavaScript operator, but let's see what they mean by stopping the use of this operator for primitive data types. Now I can check if my address, if I have a street, sorry for that, if I have street as a string in address. Now what does it essentially mean? I'll actually console log it so that you can see live what it does, right? So if I open the console, yeah, I'll zoom in and I'll run. So I get true. Okay, let's try another example. I'll copy this again, and this time I'll say is country in address. Let's see what it prints over here. So I'll run it again. This time it says true and false. So basically it's checking if the country key is inside my address or not, and it's checking if the street key is inside my address. Now, as you can see, this method, this object, very clearly over here, it has just two keys. It has a street key and a city key. So it just tells me that street in address, yes, it is true, but country in address, no, it does not exist. So it gives me a false. Now imagine writing something like this, foo in 42. It doesn't mean anything because you have to have an object over here. So you can actually write something like this. Now it doesn't give you an error because objects can have keys. And if we have actually something like this, this would actually give me the true value, same as it gives in the street case, right? But if I write blah in this object, now it will give me false. I hope you understand that. So if you're using the in operator with primitive types, it is going to be basically stopped by TypeScript. They're stopping the support for it. So that is one major breaking change. There are a few others as well, but they're really performance and other changes. In your day-to-day coding life, you won't really be needing them. And what's next? TypeScript is already working on 4.3. It's hard to believe that, first of all, it's hard to believe it's already March. It looks like the year just started, and it's hard to believe that TypeScript already released 4.1 and 4.2 since they released the 4.0 version. So yeah, we have to just stay tuned for 4.3. It can come anytime now. And yeah, if you like the live stream, hit the like button, show your support in the comments, hit the subscribe button, the notification bell. If you haven't done that already, I would really appreciate it. And just so you know, I'm starting a new theme in this channel. So what we are going to do is every Wednesday, 9 p.m. EST, we are going to be live and we are going to learn together a new concept like we just did today. So my idea is that every Wednesday, 9 p.m. EST, we will learn a new concept, maybe HTML, CSS, JavaScript, TypeScript, some framework like Angular, React, Node.js, maybe some DevOps, and we learn everything together. So let me know in the comments down below what you would like to learn, and we would really go through that concept. And if I don't know it, that's even better. Even I would get a chance to learn it with you guys. So again, thank you for sticking it till the very end, and until next time, bye-bye.